John, students now have the option to opt out of religious education, and you've been calling for this for many years. Just tell me a little bit about why you've been pushing for that.
Yes, we're absolutely delighted that the campaign has now been successful and the Minister has captured our recommendations in the new circular letter. So anyone who saw the Minister interviewed on the television will have seen that there's 3 specific things that ETB schools have been doing that the new circular letter is intended to address. So one is that the state RE course is supposed to be for those of all faiths and none. It's supposed to teach about what religions exist in the world rather than telling the kids that one particular religion is true. But actually the ETB schools have been integrating Catholicism into that course so that it's really Catholic instruction rather than religious education. And the second thing they've been doing is to make those Catholic classes compulsory, so kids can't pick another subject. And the third thing they've been doing is to implement policies that frustrate everyone's constitutional right to opt out. So the Constitution says that if parents don't want their kids to listen to Catholic instruction, they can opt out of that. But lots of ETB schools have written policies that describe the opt-out, where kids have to sit in the same class, they can't go to a different room, they're not allowed to wear headphones, they're not allowed to do any additional work, they have to just sit and listen to the same Catholic instruction as everyone else. So it's really not an opt-out at all, and that's what the Minister has addressed with the new circular letter. So yes, we're delighted he's adopted our recommendations, and now just like kids can choose, let's say, French instead of German, they can choose other subjects instead of religion. So they can study maths and science instead of miracles and superstitions.
Would it not make sense there? You spoke about how, with religious classes, they're supposed to learn about world religions all across the world and all the different kinds of ones, but that it's kind of become tailored to, say, the Catholic religion. Would it not make sense to revamp religious education as opposed to making it an opt-out subject, just to kind of ease people into it a little bit, maybe?
The complication there comes from the patronage system in our schools. So there's a body called the NCCA that defines the curriculum for all of these subjects, and they've already done exactly what you suggest. They've defined the religious education curriculum to be neutral and objective, to tell people about all of the religions that exist in the world, which is a very useful thing. It's difficult to understand history, for example, if you don't know what the difference is between Christianity and Islam and what the different beliefs are. So it's good to provide that kind of neutral religious education. But what our patronage system does is allows Catholic patrons to essentially adopt that state RE curriculum and instead make it religious instruction according to the Catholic faith. And that kind of Catholic faith formation has been implemented in ETB schools too, which is quite amazing. The ETBs will portray themselves as the state alternative to denominational schools, but actually what we found through our FOI requests is that ETB schools in many cases are every bit as Catholic as those who are directly managed by the church.
And a lot of people would argue that the Catholic religion is such a cornerstone of Irish culture that it is something that you should have to learn about, even if you're not being forced to, believe in it. I imagine that they're not forcing people to believe in it, but, learning about the ins and outs of it, surely that can't be that bad.
Yes, that's exactly the rub. So what the NCCA curriculum does is, as I say, it describes lots of different religions in the world. But of course, for exactly the reasons that you describe, it places a particular focus on Christianity. And because of the history of Ireland, it will provide a description of how Christianity came to Ireland. And the vast majority of the curriculum is focused on the details of Christianity. But there's a difference between explaining what the beliefs are and telling the kids that this particular belief is true. So if I can put it this way, it's a difference between explaining to kids, here's what Catholics believe, as compared to explaining to kids that actually Catholicism is true, and all of the non-Catholics here are going to hell because Jesus said so.
So you basically say that it can't be neutral whenever there is that patronage system here in Ireland?
Yes, well, the Education Act gives the patrons the right to implement their own programme, but what we have seen fixed this week by the Minister is that the ETB schools who do not have a denominational patron, there is no religious denomination involved with all of these non-designated ETB colleges, and even though that's the case, they were still indoctrinating Catholicism. So really, they were doing this without telling parents. So if parents go and ask the ETB schools, they're told that the classes are neutral and objective, but really what they're doing is they're indoctrinating someone else's superstitions against parental wishes.
And then, I mean, people could argue as well that if people are starting to be able to opt out of religion, which a lot of people will see as a core subject that has always been on the curriculum, you know, what's next? What else will people be able to opt out of? Because I know a very religious people perhaps wouldn't believe a lot of things in certain sciences.
Yes, that's true. So what we have to do here then is describe what things that we have good evidence for, and that's what good teaching is involved. So if you want, for example, if you consider a chemistry teacher who's telling the kids that water is 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, they're not telling the kids that that's true because some authority has said so. They're saying that that's true because here's all of the evidence that we have, here's how you can verify that. The difference with religious beliefs is that they'll say, you know, the Immaculate Conception is true because a man with a funny hat in Rome said so. And that's not a good reason to teach things as fact. What science does is that it teaches what we have the best evidence to believe. So we have good evidence to believe that water is 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. And that kind of teaching is very different from teaching from authority, which is really anathema to the scientific method.
And these new rules, they don't apply to religion-run schools, so they don't apply to religious schools. Do you think we might see a sway in how many people then are enrolling in religious schools? You know, parents might not have realised it before, but maybe they'll now think this is quite important to me, that my child does actually attend religious education classes.
Well, I think you've exactly put your finger on why this is such a game changer, because when parents are looking at the academic achievement for kids, they want their kids to be studying maths and science and English and academic subjects. And in denominational schools, religion is 2.5 hours per week. So what this will mean is that for every 2.5 hours that kids in religious schools are studying miracles and superstitions, those 2.5 hours can be spent on maths and science in ETB schools. And I think parents who are focused on the academic achievement of their kids will see that and see the advantages of being able to opt out of religion. And exactly as you say, I think that'll put some pressure on the Catholic sector to offer their students the opportunity to opt out of religion too.
But realistically, though, children probably won't choose, you know, extracurricular or they won't choose activities as opposed to religion that are, say, like maths or science or, you know, language classes potentially. They're probably going to want to choose things like sports, maybe.
Yes, and sports is a great thing to do. There's lots of good reasons why people should be out running around a field rather than sitting in a classroom listening to a priest telling them about transubstantiation. So the real issue that we hear about a lot of the time in the education system is choice. And if people have the choice to go and study religion, then that's great. And if they have the choice to choose sports or maths or science, then that's great too.
And as you said, this is the first overhaul of the curriculum since 1999, I think it is. So, you know, why now? What's happened now that spurred this on then?
Well, I'd like to think the Atheist Ireland campaign has played a large part in that. So people from Atheist Ireland have been sitting with the department in meetings working through the details of this new circular for some time now. And that came in the back of a campaign of freedom of information requests where we were able to publish the written policies within some of these ETB schools, and they really are shocking to read. You know, the written policies in the school would say that when the Catholic kids are studying religion, they're not making academic progress, and therefore if we let the non-Catholic kids study academically, they'll have an advantage. Therefore, they can't let the non-Catholics opt out. The non-Catholics have to sit in the religion class too. So these are educationalists who are being paid by the state to educate our kids, and what they're doing is they're saying, because the Catholics are being held back by learning about all these superstitions, we have to hold the non-Catholics back too. And that's just a completely unsustainable position for an educationalist to take. And I think the Minister for Education has seen that, and the recent circular is a reaction to that.